My name is Bronte, and the moment my marriage cracked open began with one text message. I was standing in the kitchen folding shirts when my phone buzzed on the counter. I wiped my hands on a towel, reached for it, and froze as the words appeared on the screen. Bronte, about the wedding. You don't need to come. It's better this way. Family only. The message was from my husband, Ethan. His brother Daniel was getting married in 2 weeks. For months I had been part of every plan. I drove Emily, Daniel's fiancée, to her dress fittings. I compared menus with her when the caterer argued over prices. I picked up decorations when her schedule got tight. Every step I was there. And now, with one cold line, I was erased. My hands trembled as I called Ethan. He picked up after 3 rings. His tone was flat, controlled, as if he had practiced it. Bronte, don't make this harder. Emily feels you might cause tension. It's her day. I don't want conflict. I could barely breathe. I'm your wife. Do you hear yourself? 6 years of marriage, and you're telling me to stay home from your own brother's wedding? He sighed, impatient. It's complicated. Please just accept it. We'll talk later. Then the line went dead. The silence after that was brutal. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the wall, my phone still in my hand. Betrayal doesn't always arrive with shouting. Sometimes it slips in disguised as indifference. And in that moment, Ethan's indifference screamed louder than any fight we had ever had. That night, I lay awake beside him. He slept easily, as if nothing had happened. I stared at the ceiling, the minutes dragging by. Every sacrifice I had made for his family replayed like a cruel slideshow. I remembered covering Daniel's debts when his business collapsed. I remembered organizing holidays for his parents, cooking, cleaning, making sure they felt cared for. I remembered standing by Ethan when his own company nearly folded, pouring my own savings into keeping him afloat. And now? I was disposable. By dawn I had not closed my eyes once. My chest felt hollow, but my hands were steady as I made coffee. I sat down at my laptop trying to distract myself with emails. That was when I saw the subject line. Inheritance finalized, action required. My uncle had passed away months earlier, and the estate had been in probate. I clicked the email, skimmed the lines, and felt my heart race. The case was settled. I was the sole heir. Among the assets was a fully renovated event venue outside the city, a place used for weddings, banquets, fundraisers. Curious, I opened the booking schedule attached to the file. My eyes caught on the highlighted entry. My throat went dry. Daniel Hayes and Emily Carter. Wedding date confirmed. For several seconds I just stared. My brother-in-law's wedding, the one I had just been cut out of, was booked at the venue I now owned. I leaned back in my chair, pressing a hand over my mouth. A short, bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Ethan had told me to stay home. Emily had erased me. Daniel had accepted my absence. And yet, without knowing, they had chosen a place that was mine. I opened the folder of property documents. Floor plans. Security access. Lighting systems. Catering agreements. Every contract flowed back to my name. The walls, the lights, the music, they belonged to me. I closed the laptop slowly. My reflection stared back from the black screen. I looked exhausted, but there was a sharpness in my eyes I hadn't seen in years. Ethan thought he had humiliated me. Daniel thought I was irrelevant. Emily thought she had one. None of them had a clue that the ground beneath their perfect day had just shifted. I stood and walked to the window. Outside, the street was quiet. Neighbors leaving for work. Inside, a storm built under my ribs. 2 weeks. 14 days. 14 nights. Enough time to decide how their perfect evening would unfold. And how it would collapse. I whispered into the empty room. You wanted me gone. Now you'll wish I stayed away. The wedding wasn't just going to be their celebration. It was going to be my stage. And when the lights went out, so would their illusions. The next evening, Ethan came home late. I had spent the whole day pretending to be calm, waiting for the moment to confront him properly. He dropped his keys on the counter, loosened his tie, and acted as if nothing had happened. I stood in the doorway of the kitchen. We need to talk about the wedding. He barely looked at me. Bronte, I don't want to do this again. Please let it go. Let it go. My voice was sharper than I intended. Your family asked me to step aside from your brother's wedding. Do you know how humiliating that is? Do you even care? Ethan finally turned, his expression cold. This isn't about you. Daniel and Emily just want peace. You stir things up. It's better this way. I felt the heat rise in my face. Peace? I supported Daniel when no one else would. I paid his bills when his business collapsed. I gave Emily rides when she needed them. And now suddenly I'm the problem? He shrugged. They think you're too involved. Too opinionated. Honestly, maybe they're right. It was like a blade sliding between my ribs. He didn't just agree with them, he believed it. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. So after everything, you stand with them? Bronte, he said, pulling out a chair. It's only one wedding. Don't be dramatic. Just stay home. I'll be back the next day. We'll move on. I stared at him, searching for any flicker of the man I once trusted. There was nothing. He had already chosen his side. That night I lay awake again. But instead of tears, something else spread through me. Cold, clear determination. He had no idea that his betrayal had unlocked something far more dangerous than his silence. 2 days later, Ethan's words came back to sting even harder. I overheard him on the phone in the garage. I had gone to fetch a box of old photos when I froze at the sound of his voice, low and tense. Don't worry. Bronte won't be there. I handled it. She's difficult, but she knows better now. There was a pause. Then he chuckled, a sound I hadn't heard in months. Of course I'll sit with you. You'll have the seat you wanted. I pressed a hand against the wall to steady myself. My breath caught. Whoever was on the other end, it wasn't his brother, and it wasn't his parents. It was someone else. The way his voice softened, the way his laugh warmed, it was clear. Ethan wasn't just cutting me out for Emily's sake. He was cutting me out because there was someone else. I stepped back silently, my pulse hammering in my ears. He ended the call, muttered something, and walked back inside without noticing me. I stayed in the garage for nearly an hour, replaying his words. She'll have the seat she wanted. A woman. At the wedding. Humiliation burned hotter than ever. But alongside it, something sharper began to take shape. He thought I was weak, that I would stay quiet, that I would shrink. He thought I was still the Bronte who forgave his lateness, who covered his debts, who swallowed her pride. But I wasn't that woman anymore. Not after the text. Not after the call. The next morning I drove to the venue. My venue. It stood tall at the edge of town, glass walls glinting in the sunlight, chandeliers visible through the windows. Workers moved in and out, preparing for upcoming events. I parked, walked in, and introduced myself as the new owner. Their surprise was genuine. They had expected me to be a distant landlord, not a woman standing with fire in her eyes. I toured every corner, memorizing the layout. The main hall gleamed with polished floors. The lighting system was state-of-the-art, controlled from a discrete panel near the stage. There were backup generators, sound systems, even climate controls that could all be managed by me. I touched each switch, each key, and felt power pulse through my fingertips. Standing at the edge of the empty ballroom, I closed my eyes and pictured the wedding night. Emily in her dress, Daniel at the altar, Ethan sitting smugly in the crowd with his secret companion. And then me, unseen but present, pulling the strings. My lips curved into a thin smile. He thought he had silenced me. He had no idea I was already writing the script for his downfall. The wedding wasn't going to be a celebration of their love. It was going to be the unveiling of his lies. And I held the switch that would end it all. I knew I could not rely on suspicion alone. If Ethan was cheating, if he was humiliating me behind my back, I needed proof that no one could twist, deny, or bury. The first step was his phone. Ethan guarded it closely, but patterns reveal themselves when you pay attention. Every night, he placed it face down on the nightstand. Every morning he took it into the shower. That meant my window was narrow but not impossible. On a Thursday morning he stumbled out of bed late, muttering about a meeting. He rushed into the bathroom, water roaring. I waited 10 seconds, then slipped the phone into my hand. My pulse thundered in my ears as I swiped. His lock code was the same 4 digits it had always been. His birthday. Careless. The messages scrolled like poison. A number saved under only an initial. L. Dinner was perfect. Can't wait for Saturday. She has no idea. It's almost funny. At the wedding, don't worry. You'll sit beside me. My throat tightened. It wasn't just an affair. It was brazen. Public. She was going to sit beside him while I stayed home like a discarded accessory. I screenshotted everything, sent it to my private email, and deleted the traces. My hand shook, but my focus was razor sharp. The water shut off. I slid the phone back onto the nightstand and stepped into the kitchen just as he came out, towel around his waist. He glanced at me once, then at the phone, satisfied it was untouched. I forced a smile. Coffee. Please, he said, distracted, already checking his messages. The double life continued, but now I had the first threads of his web. The next step was his financials. Ethan thought he was clever, keeping accounts in his own name separate from mine. But when you share a house, you share mail. And the bank wasn't discreet. One envelope caught my attention, statements from a joint card we never used. Or so I thought. I opened it. My breath caught. Hotel charges. Restaurant bills. Jewelry purchases. All within the last 3 months. One charge in particular stood out. A boutique lingerie shop downtown. I hadn't stepped foot in that place. I photocopied every page, slid the originals back into the envelope, and tucked the copies into a folder I labeled with one word. Evidence. Still, financial trails could be explained away. Work dinners, client meetings, gifts for a partner's wife. Lies are easy to craft. What I needed was undeniable proof, something that would crush his facade in front of everyone he had fooled. I drove to the venue again. The manager, a woman named Claire, greeted me warmly now that she knew I was the owner. I walked the halls with her, asking questions, studying details. She showed me the security system. Cameras tucked discreetly into corners, all linked to a central control room. That was it. My weapon. I could use the cameras to capture whatever I needed. If Ethan brought Elle into the building before the wedding, if he dared step foot there with her, I would have the footage. If not, I could still control what played on those screens the night of the event. I thanked Claire, then lingered alone in the main hall. The chandeliers glimmered faintly in the afternoon sun. I imagined the guests seated, music swelling, everyone dressed in their finest. And then the screen lowering, images flickering. His secret exposed not in whispers but in blazing light. But first I had to confirm who Elle was. 2 nights later the opportunity came. Ethan claimed he had to work late. I waited 30 minutes, then followed him. My car stayed 2 lengths behind his, lights dimmed. He drove downtown, parked outside a restaurant, and walked inside. Through the window I saw him. And then her. A woman with dark hair, striking features. Laughter too free for someone sharing a table with a married man. She leaned in, touched his hand, whispered something that made him smile in a way he hadn't smiled at me in years. I lifted my phone and snapped photos. 1, 2, 3. Proof. They lingered for nearly 2 hours, then left together. She slipped her arm through his, bold and unashamed. My chest ached, but I held steady, recording each step. He opened the car door for her, glanced around once, and drove away with her beside him. I sat in my car, breathing hard, the city lights blurring around me. It hurt. Of course it hurt. But beneath the pain was a current of steel. He thought he had written me out of his life. He thought he could spend my sacrifices on someone else. But every secret he shared with her, every laugh, every touch, I was collecting it all. And soon the entire family would see the truth. The next step wasn't just to watch. It was to prepare. And when the wedding day arrived, Ethan wouldn't be the only one with a script. I knew I could not fight this alone. Proof mattered, but allies would make it impossible for Ethan to twist the story. He thrived on control, on convincing others that his version of events was the only truth. If I wanted to destroy that illusion, I needed people by my side, people he would never see coming. The first person I turned to was Claire, the venue manager. She was sharp, professional, and most importantly, discreet. I arranged a private meeting with her in the control room. I need a favor, I told her, my voice steady. I need access to the feeds during the wedding. Not just the cameras, everything. The screens, the sound system, the lights. She raised an eyebrow. That is a lot of control for an owner to request. I leaned in, lowering my voice. This wedding will not go as expected. I cannot explain everything now, but if you trust me, you will see why. I promise you no one will get hurt. but the truth needs to come out. Claire studied me for a long moment, then finally nodded. I'll make sure you have what you need. But Bronte, once this starts, you won't be able to stop it. I don't want to stop it, I said. I want it to end. Next, I reached out to someone who knew betrayal all too well, my sister Evelyn. She had been through her own disaster of a marriage, one where her husband gambled away their savings. She rebuilt her life from nothing, and because of that, she understood resilience. When I told her everything about the text, the call, the affair, her reaction was instant. That coward, she spat. After everything you've done for him? After everything you sacrificed? No, he doesn't get to win. I need your help, I said. I can't just expose him quietly. He humiliated me publicly. I need the family to see who he really is. And I need someone by my side when the storm hits. Evelyn's expression softened. You'll have me. Whatever you need, whatever it takes. With Claire and Evelyn on board, I had the foundation. But I still needed legal weight. That meant reaching out to Mr. Hartwell, the attorney who had once handled my late father's estate. He was older now but still sharp. We met in his office, sunlight slanting across polished wood. I laid out the evidence, screenshots, receipts, photos. He flipped through them slowly, then looked up with a thin smile. You have a strong case, he said. If you want a divorce, these will give you leverage. If you want something more public, well, that is less conventional but still possible. I want both, I admitted. I want out, but I also want the truth revealed. He lied about me, about our marriage, about everything. His family thinks I'm the problem. I want them to see who the problem really is. Hartwell tapped his pen against the desk. Then timing will be everything. File too early and he has time to spin a narrative. File too late and he may cover his tracks. But if you want maximum impact, he paused, meeting my eyes. Do it at the wedding. The thought had already been burning in my mind, but hearing it aloud crystallized it. The wedding would not just be a family event. It would be the perfect stage. Can you prepare the papers? I asked. Hartwell nodded. Consider it done. I'll have them ready for you to serve on the day. I left his office with my pulse steady, my folder heavier with both evidence and intent. For the first time in weeks, I felt in control. That night, I sat across from Ethan at dinner. He chatted casually about work, about Daniel's big day, about how important it was for everyone to show unity. He never once mentioned me being absent. He never once noticed the way I studied him, memorizing his every careless word. He thought he was winning. He thought he had silenced me. But I had allies now. A manager with access. A sister with fire in her heart. A lawyer with the papers that could end everything. All I needed was patience. The pieces were set. Now it was time to build the plan that would turn his perfect wedding into the night his mask shattered. The plan began to form like a blueprint in my head. Every piece had to lock perfectly into place. One mistake, one slip, and Ethan would wriggle free with his lies intact. But if I executed it correctly, there would be no escape. First, the stage. The wedding venue was my battlefield, and I knew it better than anyone else. I walked the halls alone late at night, tracing routes, testing doors, studying where the cameras pointed. I imagined guests seated, laughter filling the air, music rising. And I imagined silence falling when the lights dimmed and the truth appeared on screen. Claire provided me with full access to the control room. She gave me a quick tutorial showing me the console, the feeds, the projectors. My fingers lingered over the controls, testing each button. You're sure about this? Claire asked. More sure than I've ever been, I said. When those screens light up, Ethan's lies die in front of everyone. Next came the evidence presentation. Screenshots and receipts were powerful, but static images lacked force. I needed movement, sequence, drama, so I began creating a timeline. On my laptop, I organized everything: the messages from Elle, the bank statements with hotel charges, the photographs of Ethan and the mistress at dinner. Each image flowed into the next, a story told in cruel clarity. I added timestamps, captions, and pauses that would force the audience to absorb the weight of what they were seeing. Then I added the final stroke, a video clip. 2 nights before, I had followed Ethan again, this time recording with sound. From my car, I captured him laughing with her, saying words that cut like knives. She has no clue, he bragged. She's out of the way for Daniel's wedding. Finally, no drama. Just us. Just us. His words, not mine. They would echo in that room like thunder. Evelyn helped refine the presentation. She sat with me at the kitchen table, headphones on, eyes sharp. It's perfect, she said. By the time this ends, no one will ever look at him the same way. Hartwell, my lawyer, prepared the final strike. The divorce papers, complete with financial evidence and details of the affair, were sealed and waiting. He promised me that as soon as I served them, Ethan's leverage would crumble. You're protecting yourself, Hartwell told me. But more than that, you're reclaiming your dignity. Do not let him make you doubt that. I nodded, clutching the folder like armor. Still, I knew Ethan. He was arrogant but not stupid. He might sense something if I wasn't careful. So I rehearsed. I practiced every movement, every step of the reveal. From the moment the lights dimmed to the second the paper slid across the table, I drilled it until it became instinct. The hardest part was keeping my face calm when Ethan was near. At dinner, he joked about his brother's wedding. It'll be perfect, he said. Everyone will be watching us, thinking how lucky we all are. I smiled thinly. Yes, I replied. Everyone will be watching. Inside, I was already picturing the moment when their stares would turn from admiration to disgust. The week before the wedding, I tested everything one last time. Claire gave me the control room for an hour. The screen flickered with Ethan's messages, the receipts, the photos, the video. I stood alone in the empty hall, the sound of his laughter filling the space, and I imagined the guests' faces as they watched. It was perfect. Cold. Icy. Unstoppable. As I shut the system down, Evelyn squeezed my hand. He won't see it coming, she whispered. No, I agreed. And that's what will make it unforgettable. The plan was complete. But perfection on paper rarely survives the chaos of reality. And as the wedding day approached, I knew one thing. Ethan would try to control the script. He always did. The question was, what move would he make? And how far would I have to go to keep the truth alive? The morning of the wedding arrived heavy with silence. I woke before dawn, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of everything pressing down. Today was not just Daniel's wedding. Today was the day Ethan's mask would break in front of the people he valued most. I dressed with care, every detail deliberate. A black dress, simple but sharp, with sleeves that clung to my arms like armor. No jewelry except for the wedding band I would return in front of everyone. I packed my folder into a slim leather bag. The documents and flash drive inside like weapons waiting to be unsheathed. Evelyn drove me to the venue. Her grip on the wheel was tight, her eyes forward. You're ready, she said firmly. He won't know what hit him. But the moment we arrived, I sensed something was off. The parking lot was crowded, but there was tension in the air. Inside, Claire met me at the entrance, her face pale. Bronte, she whispered urgently, pulling me aside. Something happened. Ethan was here early. He was asking about the control room. He pressured one of the junior staff into letting him look around. My stomach dropped. Did he find anything? Claire shook her head. I don't think so. But he knows something is different. He's nervous. You'll have to be careful. I clenched my jaw. Ethan's instincts were sharper than I wanted to admit. He always had a way of sniffing out threats. This was the pivot I had feared. I went straight to the control room to check. The console was untouched, but my flash drive, carefully hidden in a drawer, was slightly shifted. My pulse spiked. Ethan had been close, too close. I plugged it in and ran the file. The timeline was intact. The video played, his voice echoing through the speakers. She has no clue. Relief washed over me, but only for a second. Are you sure about this? Evelyn asked, standing behind me. Yes, I said, forcing calm into my voice. But we move fast. If he senses more, he'll try to shut it down. As the guests arrived, I positioned myself carefully, mingling just enough to be seen, but not too much to invite conversation. Ethan moved through the crowd with his polished smile, shaking hands, making jokes. But every so often, his eyes flicked toward me, sharp and suspicious. At the rehearsal dinner weeks ago, I had felt invisible. Today, I was the storm he could not control, and he felt it. During the ceremony, I watched from the side aisle. Daniel and his bride exchanged vows under glowing chandeliers. The family beamed with pride. Ethan clapped louder than anyone, but his jaw was tight, his laughter forced. He was already unraveling. When the reception began, I excused myself quietly. Evelyn followed close behind. In the control room, Claire handed me the headset. "All systems ready," she said. "The screens are yours." I placed the headset on, my fingers steady as I cued the file. The hum of the crowd in the ballroom filled my ears. Glasses clinked. Music swelled. It was the picture of celebration. Then came the announcement. Ethan stood at the microphone raising a glass. "To my brother and his beautiful bride," he said. "May this night remind us of the power of loyalty, of commitment, of family." The irony made my stomach twist. Loyalty. Commitment. Words he had shredded without a thought. I gave Claire the signal. The lights dimmed. The first slide appeared on the giant screens. A hotel receipt with Ethan's name, timestamped just 3 weeks earlier. Gasps rose instantly. The second slide followed. A photograph of Ethan and the mistress, heads close together over a table. Ethan froze at the microphone. What is this?" His voice cracked, the calm slipping away. I watched from the control room, my pulse steady. The plan was working. But I knew this was only the beginning. He would fight back. He always did. And in the pit of my stomach I felt the pivot again. Something was coming, something I had not prepared for. Ethan dropped the microphone and stormed toward the control room doors. His footsteps pounded like thunder in the hallway. The reveal had begun. But would I survive his counterattack before the truth finished playing out? The ballroom was no longer a place of joy. It was a stage drenched in tension. Gasps turned to murmurs, murmurs to whispers, and whispers to silence as the first images lingered on the massive screens. From my vantage point in the control room, I watched Ethan fight to keep control. He shoved through stunned guests, his voice raised, trying to drown out the evidence. "This is a mistake," he shouted. "Some kind of trick, ignore it." But no one looked away. Claire cued the next sequence. Hotel receipts appeared in bold text, each one stamped with dates that aligned perfectly with times he claimed to be traveling for work. I had highlighted each with glowing red circles, forcing the connections to stand out. Guests leaned closer, eyes wide. Aunts, uncles, cousins, faces pale with disbelief. Daniel's new bride covered her mouth. Her father stared with tight fury. Ethan lunged at the control room door. It rattled under his fist. "Bronte," he bellowed. "Open this damn door." I leaned into the headset microphone, my voice cool. "You wanted loyalty, Ethan. Here it is, the truth, loyal only to itself." The next file rolled. Photographs of Ethan and the mistress, Laura, flashed on screen. Dinner dates. Bar embraces. A hotel lobby kiss. Gasps cracked the room like lightning. "That's not me," Ethan screamed, though his own face was undeniable in every shot. "This is doctored." Then came the audio. His voice, recorded just nights earlier, filled the speakers. "She has no clue. She's out of the way for Daniel's wedding. Finally, no drama. Just us." The sound was unmistakable. His tone, his laugh, his arrogance. The crowd erupted. Some shouted. Others booed. The family matriarch stood, her hand trembling against the table. Daniel, red-faced, stepped toward the microphone. "Is this true, Ethan?" "I know. She set me up. Bronte is lying." Ethan's voice cracked. "She's bitter, jealous." Claire muted his microphone remotely. His lips moved but no sound carried. The audience turned fully to the screens, no longer interested in his denials. I pushed the final piece into play, the divorce papers. A scan appeared across the screen, his name bold at the top, the charges clear: infidelity, financial misconduct, breach of marital duty. Highlighted in bright yellow was the clause freezing his access to joint funds. The ballroom roared. Shock turned to chaos. Investors in tailored suits exchanged furious glances, whispering urgently. One slammed a fist on the table. Daniel's bride looked like she might faint. Her father shook his head, muttering, "Unbelievable." The mistress herself, Laura, sat near the back. She rose halfway, face pale, then bolted for the exit as the screen replayed Ethan's laughter. Guests followed her with their eyes, judgment sharp. Ethan finally broke through the control room door, face twisted with rage. He lunged at me, but Evelyn was ready. She stepped between us, shoving him back. "Touch her," Evelyn hissed, "and you'll have more than papers to answer to." Security, alerted by Claire, arrived within seconds. They restrained him as he thrashed, shouting threats. "This isn't over, Bronte. You think you've won." But it was over. His empire of lies was collapsing in real time. The screens flickered with every shred of proof, his investors watching, his family gasping, his reputation dying. I stepped out of the control room, my heels clicking against the marble. The crowd parted. All eyes on me now. I walked calmly to the head table, took the microphone and spoke. For years I trusted him. For years I believed his promises. Tonight you all see the truth. He mocked loyalty, but loyalty demands light. I am done being his shadow. Gasps echoed, followed by silence so deep it pressed against my ears. Ethan stopped struggling just long enough to meet my eyes. A smile, cold, defiant, spread across his face. "You think this ruins me? Wait until tomorrow, Bronte. You don't know what I've kept hidden." The threat hung in the air. My victory was real, but the battle was not yet over. The ballroom, once dressed for celebration, had become a courtroom without walls. The lights burned harsh against the silence, illuminating every stunned face. I stood at the microphone, Ethan restrained by 2 security guards just yards away. He shouted over the noise, "You're all fools. This is nothing but lies." But his words no longer mattered. The evidence looped on the screens, undeniable. Guests whispered in disbelief. The bride clutched Daniel's arm, her face pale as parchment. Daniel's jaw was locked, fury radiating from him like heat. Investors were already pulling out their phones. I saw one man in a dark navy suit lean toward another and mutter, "We're finished with him. Done." The second nodded gravely, scrolling rapidly. Ethan's mother rose from her seat, trembling. "Ethan, tell me this isn't true." Her voice cracked. He turned his face away, shame written in every line of his body. Then the shouting began. A cousin called him a disgrace. An aunt told him he'd embarrassed the family name. Someone in the back yelled, "Get him out of here." The security team tightened their grip, but Ethan jerked violently, his voice raw. "Bronte, you think this destroys me? You'll regret this." I looked him in the eye, calm despite the chaos. "No, Ethan. You destroyed yourself. I just turned on the lights." The crowd reacted with a wave of gasps and murmurs. Some clapped softly. Others sat frozen, processing. Laura, the mistress, had returned, perhaps trying to salvage something. But the moment she stepped through the doors, every gaze snapped to her. The bride's father pointed at her, his voice booming. "Get her out." Security escorted her back into the night, her heels scraping desperately against the marble. Daniel finally spoke. He moved to the microphone, his voice shaking but strong. "My brother stood here tonight speaking about loyalty. And yet, he betrayed his wife, his family, his own business partners. Bronte, I am sorry." His apology was a blade Ethan could not deflect. The investors murmured louder, many already drafting emails. I saw one nod toward me, a silent recognition that the power had shifted. Ethan's struggles slowed. The defiance slipped, replaced with a hollow stare. Sweat dripped down his temple. His lips moved, whispering words no one could hear. Then, like a final blow, Claire played the last recording, Ethan discussing hidden funds accounts in his name only. His investors erupted. "Fraud," one snapped. "Legal action," another hissed. The security guards dragged him backward, his voice breaking into screams. "No. Stop. This isn't the end." But it was. The ballroom erupted again. Guests moving, voices overlapping, family members crying. Daniel's bride sobbed into her mother's arms. The investors cornered one another, already planning the next steps. And through it all, I stood silent, steady, as though my feet were rooted to the marble floor. My chest rose and fell, my heart steady for the first time in years. The microphone still in my hand, I said softly but clearly, "You wanted the truth. Now you have it. Whatever comes next is no longer my burden." Silence fell again, but this time it was not stunned disbelief. It was the silence of a reckoning completed. Just as I turned to leave the stage, Ethan broke free for one last desperate lunge. His eyes locked on me, wild and unhinged, before security tackled him to the ground. His voice tore through the hall, raw and venomous. "Tomorrow, Bronte. Tomorrow you'll see what real ruin looks like." The room gasped. The reveal was done, but the threat of his shadow lingered. Morning came like a verdict. The sunlight through my curtains was sharp, unforgiving, and the city outside hummed with whispers I could not yet hear but knew existed. I sat at the edge of the bed, still in yesterday's dress, my hair tangled from the storm of the night before. The echoes of Ethan's last words clung to me. "Tomorrow you'll see what real ruin looks like." I forced myself to stand. Evelyn had stayed the night, sleeping on the couch with her phone in her hand, just in case. She stirred as I walked into the kitchen. "Coffee?" she asked, her voice husky from lack of sleep. "Please," I said, sitting at the table. My hand shook slightly as I unfolded the morning paper. Ethan's face stared back at me from the front page. The headline screamed, "Scandal at Wedding. Prominent Executive Exposed." There was no denying it anymore. The story had spread like fire. Photos from the ballroom, screenshots of the documents, even stills of Laura being escorted out were everywhere. Ethan's reputation was scorched to ash. The phone rang. It was Claire. "Bronte," she said quickly. "It's worse than we thought. The investors filed emergency motions overnight. His accounts are frozen. He's already out as acting director. The board voted unanimously." I closed my eyes, a wave of relief passing over me. "It's done then." But Claire hesitated. "Not completely. There are rumors Ethan is planning to counter. He told someone he has files of his own, dirt he kept hidden. We don't know what he means yet." Evelyn set down 2 mugs of coffee, her expression dark. "He's bluffing. He's cornered Bronte. Men like him always reach for ghosts when they're drowning." I nodded, but unease sat heavy in my chest. By midday the calls began. Journalists, family members, even old friends who had distanced themselves during Ethan's reign of arrogance. Some were supportive, others fishing for details. I ignored most of them, but one message pierced through. A text from Daniel. "Thank you. You saved us from celebrating a lie. I don't know how to repair the damage, but you showed courage none of us had." Daniel. I read it twice, emotions churning. Daniel had been complicit in ignoring Ethan's cruelty for years, but maybe now he finally saw the truth. Later that afternoon, Evelyn and I went for a walk. The air was cool, the city alive with chatter. As we passed a cafe, I caught fragments of conversation. "Did you hear about that executive? The mistress at the wedding. His wife exposed him. Brutal." They didn't know they were speaking about me, but the words still sank deep. I was both invisible and infamous, a ghost and a headline. When we returned, a package was waiting at my door. No name, no return address, just a plain box. Evelyn eyed it cautiously. "Do you want me to open it?" I shook my head and carefully lifted the lid. Inside were shredded photographs, taped back together clumsily. My face stared up from them. Ethan's handwriting scrawled across the edges. "You're not finished. Neither am I." A chill shot down my spine. Evelyn swore under her breath. "He's trying to scare you." But it wasn't just fear. It was a warning. Ethan had something else, some card he hadn't yet played. That evening, the board released an official statement. Ethan was permanently removed, legal action pending. The investors had already begun restructuring without him. Social media roasted him, memes spreading faster than the truth itself. Laura disappeared completely, her accounts wiped, her presence gone. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I sat by the window watching the sun bleed into the horizon. Every victory comes with shadows. And Ethan's last words were shadows that stretched into tomorrow. My phone buzzed again, a new message from an unknown number. Just 3 words, "Check tomorrow's paper." The night felt colder suddenly. The war was not over, only shifting into its final act. The next morning, the city's hum carried a sharper edge, as though every streetlight and passing car whispered Ethan's name. I sat at the table with Evelyn, the newspaper folded between us. The headline was merciless. Ethan Calder, from rising star to ruin. Beneath it, paragraphs detailed the scandal. My photographs, my documents, my recordings, all laid out for the world to consume. His investors' statements were quoted in bold. Words like fraud, betrayal, gross misconduct screamed from the page. I should have felt satisfied. But the memory of the anonymous text, "Check tomorrow's paper," still pricked at the back of my mind. Evelyn watched me carefully. "He's cornered, Bronte. Cornered men bark louder, but they can't bite once the leash is on. This paper is proof you've already won." I breathed out slowly, gripping the mug of coffee between my hands. The warmth steadied me. She was right. The world had seen the truth. Ethan's empire had collapsed not because of me alone, but because lies can't stand forever in the daylight. Still, part of me waited for the other shoe to drop. By noon the calls poured in again. Not journalists this time, opportunities. Charities I'd once supported quietly wanted me back. Organizations that had hesitated to associate with Ethan now sought my endorsement. For the first time, doors were opening not because of his name but in spite of it. Daniel called too. His voice was heavy but sincere. "Bronte, I can't change what my brother did. But I owe you thanks. You saved my wife from standing beside a hypocrite. My family, we see you differently now." I didn't know how to answer. Gratitude mixed with grief, pride with exhaustion. "Daniel," I finally said, "just promise me you'll never look the other way again. Truth isn't comfortable, but it's necessary." That evening I stood before the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the same woman who had once believed Ethan's every word. She wasn't the same woman who shrank under his shadow, or the one who feared being forgotten. She was stronger, sharper. Bronte not as Ethan's wife but as Bronte on her own. When the news station replayed the ballroom footage, I didn't flinch. I watched myself walk calmly to that microphone, watched myself speak into the silence and bring his lies crashing down. I realized that moment wasn't just revenge, it was reclamation. Ethan would face the law now. Fraud, embezzlement, and every lie tied to his empire would be picked apart in court. Laura had disappeared, her silence as loud as her betrayal once was. And me? I wasn't just surviving, I was living again. Before bed, I wrote a message, not to Ethan but to myself. Your worth was never measured by his approval. Your strength was never tied to his name. You are free. Then, for the first time in years, I slept without fear. If you've listened this far, you know one thing. Silence protects liars, but truth frees the betrayed. My story isn't just about what Ethan lost. It's about what I reclaimed. My dignity. My strength. My voice. Never let anyone tell you that you are just something. Just a wife. Just a partner. Just a shadow. You are more than the label someone else sticks on you. If my story moved you, share it. Let someone else hear it who might need courage today. And if you want to hear more stories like this, real betrayals, real revelations, real power reclaimed, make sure you subscribe and stay with me. Because lies don't survive forever. And every shadow can be broken by the light.